Should the Atlanta Braves go after Trevor Bauer this offseason? We'll answer that and more on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Also, make sure you check out the podcast at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure you check out my written work over at BravesToday.com. Got a lot of written content coming your way this offseason, as well as this podcast here, 5 days a week. And I'll be doing just about all of them live at 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. You want to come and join me live. To do that, you can do it on YouTube. So make sure you hit that subscribe button there. I have over 7,500 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much for that. And if you're watching this video, hit the thumbs up button so we can get more subscribers, more Braves fans in here talking about Braves baseball. On today's episode, we're going to talk about a subject that has come up a lot already this offseason, really last offseason too. I had a lot of you asking me, should the Braves go after Trevor Bauer? Will they sign Trevor Bauer? So we're going to spend this in pretty much entire episode talking about Trevor Bauer. Got a little bit of roster news as well, the signing of Joe Jimenez. I'll talk about later in the podcast and take some of your questions for those who were able to join live. We have Jim Lay says, yes, they should sign Trevor Bauer. Richard Davis in here as well, saying the Braves just flopped in the playoffs. They need to do something different. Colby Epps, the answer is yes. He was not proven guilty, so why not? They kept Azuna, and he was guilty. Magic Eclipse says, depends on the price. It always does. Daniel Fowler in here as well says, I would do it for sure. Good evening to Gabby Foreman, Jeffrey Humphreys for joining as well. Lone Wolf in here. Bellfire, Brian Thomas, Matthew, Joseph Recap. Got a lot of people in here live. Sure, this is a very interesting topic. I think, again, it's been brought to my attention. It's been asked to me a bunch already. And should the Braves go after Trevor Bauer? So I want to get into it. I want to get your thoughts as well. I'll be trying to keep up with the comment section here as we go along. Bellfire asking, was he pitching well when he was suspended? Did he look good overseas? We're going to talk about that. Brian McGrath says the short answer is yes. Thomas Helms, don't know how he'd fit in the locker room. I think Montgomery, Nola, or Erod would be a better fit culture-wise. I think that's a good point. So a lot of you chiming in here. Continue to chime in. Like I said, I'll try to get to those later in the podcast. So I'll try to keep up with them as we go live here. Don't usually do that, but I know it's a pretty interesting topic. I'm sure you all have a lot of thoughts on it. Let's start off by going over the history of Trevor Bauer, because there's a lot of history. I'm sure there's going to be some things I miss. I'm going to try to just hit the highlights for maybe those who don't know the history of Trevor Bauer. Third overall pick by the Diamondbacks in 2011 out of UCLA, was a top prospect, got called up pretty quickly by the Diamondbacks, but struggled in his first couple of opportunities, 2012, and then in 2013 with Cleveland. Diamondbacks traded him to the now Guardians, Indians at the time, as part of a 3-team trade that involved Didi Gregorius, Drew Stubbs, Shin-Shu Chu, and among other players. He was good, but not great. Between 2014, 2017, it was always this question of, is he going to live up to the hype? Is he going to live up to the potential? And he was more of a low 4 ERA guy. Again, showed flashes, but never really was that top of the rotation pitcher many thought he would be. He's also, around that time with Cleveland, who's now known as one of the better, pitching farms in Major League Baseball. He was one of the guys pushing for, the drive line techniques and helping, pitchers advance that way. He was certainly one of the leaders in that. He was also one of the first, in my mind, baseball players to really get involved on the socially wise, social media, whether that was Twitter, YouTube, whatever it may be. Became one of the first baseball players to be, kind of outspoken and engaging with the fans, which can be great, certainly. And I think a lot of people loved that. I think it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way as well, but he's certainly, at least in my mind, one of the first players that really pushed that frontier of being more open in social media and sharing more with the fans. In 2018 is when he really took off. He had a 2.21 ERA, 221 strikeouts, and 175 in a third innings, finishing sixth in the American League Cy Young Award voting. Wasn't quite as good in 2019 with Cleveland that year, but still, really solid starting pitcher, more like a 3.6 ERA guy. They traded him to the Reds in another 3-team trade. So he's been part of two 3-team deals, which is quite interesting, both involving the Reds as well, as he was traded from Cleveland to the Reds, a deal that involved Yasiel Puig, Taylor Trammell, who was a big prospect at the time, and Franmil Reyes, among other players who were included. He was really bad at the end of 2019 with Cincinnati. I believe the ERA was around 10, but came back that next year, the shortened 2020 season, and won the NL Cy Young. That shortened 2020 season, he had a 1.73 ERA, 0.795 whip, and 100 strikeouts in 73 innings. Had a really good postseason start against the Braves as well, although the Braves did go on to win that series because the Braves pitching was absolutely lights out in that series. That led to his big deal with the Dodgers. 3 years, $102 million. He was set to get $40 million in 2021, $45 million in 2022, and then $17 million in 2023 with opt-out clauses after each of those first 2 seasons. In his first year in LA with the Dodgers, he had a 2.59 ERA in 17 starts, 137 strikeouts, and 107 2/3 innings. So he was still really good, but didn't finish the season, and that's kind of when everything fell apart with the allegations and everything that happened, legally off the field, leading into him, getting suspended by Major League Baseball, all of that. And I'm not going to get into all of that in the specifics. You want to read all that, you can certainly Google it and do some research there. Just in my mind, and I haven't done a ton of research myself, but it sounds just like a lot of he said, she said type of things. I don't know that we'll ever fully get the truth. And at this point, I don't know that it matters, at least Major League Baseball wise. He's been reinstated by the league. He was available for teams to sign him last offseason, and nobody did. So he went and signed with a team in Japan and spent last year playing baseball in Japan, which is considered, the next best Major League Baseball league that there is. Bauer got off to a slow start in Japan, actually got briefly demoted to the minor leagues there, but his overall numbers were really good. 2.87 ERA, 1.13 whip, 160 strikeouts, and 156 2/3 innings. And now, even recently, Mookie Betts saying that he wishes a team would give him a chance. That's a good endorsement by somebody who's really respected around Major League Baseball. So that's what he has been up to. That's just, again, high level, his history and why there is a lot of drama around him. Like I said, the social media presence and then, the legal allegations that he had, just kind of a lot of drama surrounding Trevor Bauer, who has, been very vocal and said some things in the past that rub people the wrong way. But that's his history. And that's why, he is in the situation that he's in. But he is available to be signed. And now the question is, will it be the Braves to do it? We'll discuss that further after the break. We are in the NFL season now. You got the Titans and the Steelers playing on Thursday Night Football, and you can get in on the action with America's number one sportsbook. Of course, that is FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $5. You can get $150 in bonus bets. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options as well, from spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. And if you go check out who is the current favorite to win the 2024 World Series, you will see the Braves at the top of that list at plus 600. Even though the Rangers, congrats to them, got the World Series this year, the Braves are still the favorite going into 2024. for. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get in on all the action this season for NFL, NHL, NBA right now in full swing. Visit FanDuel.com/playsafe as well for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. And one more time, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to place your bets. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, getting into whether or not the Braves should sign Trevor Bauer. And this is a big question. It's a difficult question. So I'm going to lay out the positives and negatives here and then get into some of your thoughts. And I'm going to start with the positives. I got two positives. I got two negatives with some, bullet points under each one of those. One of the positives is you probably can get him on a cheap short-term deal. And we know how much Alex Anthopoulos loves getting those short-term deals for starting pitchers. It's just so risky to give out long-term deals to starting pitchers. So if you can get a guy on a 1-year, 2-year deal, even maybe at a little higher AAV, those are the type of deals that Alex Anthopoulos has typically been looking at or looking for with starting pitchers. It is almost impossible to gauge what type of value Trevor Bauer has at this point, because his value is probably going to differ from team to team and some of the negatives that we'll talk about in a second. But could you get him for 2 years, $18 million? Do you get him on a 1-year deal for $15 million? Again, there's really no telling what the value is at this point, but there's a chance that you get a really good pitcher on a short-term deal, for maybe not a lot of money. And I think that is, a lot. I've seen a lot of you say that as well, is that there's a possibility to get a good pitcher for really cheap. And if you could do that, why wouldn't you? And the other part of that is you feel pretty confident he's going to be at least a solid third starter. And if you do get him cheap, and that's what he is, that's certainly great. Now, there's certainly the possibility as well that he still has that Cy Young potential in his arm. And that is, why he is so appealing to a lot of fans. And I'm sure there are some teams that's going to be appealing to as well, and why they would like to take a chance on him. Doc's Cards every day says, I'd love to see Bauer pitching for the Braves. There's a lot of you out there that really want to see him. Chris Kaysen, I want Bauer. Four-putt, Bauer has that dog in him, and we need that. A lot of you out there want Bauer, and it's because, again, it's the potential to go out and get a frontline starter and possibly get him at a really good price. So those are the positives, and those positives are very, very appealing. The negatives of signing Bauer, and there's some of you out there who have said, I just would not touch him. I do not want him on this team. Some earlier in here saying, he could be a club, might be a clubhouse chemistry issue. Leland Hurt saying, I have mixed feelings about it. Don't know if he would be a good fit for the clubhouse. And those are part of the negatives. And the one negative that comes with Trevor Bauer is the distractions. And like him or love him, believe he's innocent or guilty, he is a distraction. There is no question about it. Again, like him or love him, he is himself a distraction with, his brand that he's built socially. Again, Instagram, all of that he does. It's great. It's great for him. And it certainly has helped grow his personal brand. But at times it is a distraction to the team. And we saw how well the Braves handled distractions in the postseason. And I say well, with some sarcasm in that, because they didn't handle it well. When you had just the slightest bit of distraction, off-field distraction with what happened with Orlando Arcia, whole situation was handled poorly by Arcia, the Braves, everybody involved. So do you want to add another distraction to your team? Again, whatever you think about the production on the field, Bauer is going to bring a distraction. He's going to bring more eyes and scrutiny to the Braves. And how does a personality like that fit in the clubhouse as well? I know Mookie gave his endorsement saying that the things that are being said about Bauer, that's never any impression that he has gotten as a teammate. So certainly got to take him at his word, but could there be some concern? Certainly there's been concern with some of you out there. Remember Snit, his four-putt pointed out, said Snitker was asked about him and said he would never do it, essentially. So, again, what type of fit would he be in this clubhouse? And, if Alex Anthopoulos signs him, he would be in there. Snitker would quickly forget about that quote, especially if he goes out, pitches well, and wins games. That's what trumps everything. But what would that fit be like in the clubhouse? That's certainly a concern, I think, for myself, a lot of Braves fans, and probably the Braves front office and every front office in general. And I think that's probably the biggest negative that Trevor Bauer carries is the distractions and the clubhouse chemistry, that it might not be a fit for a particular team. The other negative is we really don't know what he will look like. And Japan numbers, they don't always correlate to the MLB level. While I said it is the second best professional baseball league, it's a lot of times compared to a AA in minor league baseball. He hasn't pitched in a major league game since 2021. So again, I know he pitched professionally at Japan last year, but he hasn't faced major league competition in 2 years. So that's a big concern as well. And he will turn 33 in January. So we're talking about, somebody who's getting close to their mid-30s. Say if you do sign him to a 2-year deal, you're talking about getting him through his age 35 season, hasn't pitched at the big league level in 2 years. We don't know what he's going to look like. But if you get him at the right price, like I said, and even if he is, a third starter, I think that's still a pretty fine deal. I know Jeffrey Humphrey's asking, what is the cost? That is that's the big question. And I think you only do it if it's at a good cost. If you got him, as Four Putt said, for $8 million for a year, why not? Take a flyer on that. I think I would be down for a deal like that. Matt Mock, it would be cool to have Sonny and Bauer back together, but on the Braves, of course, we talked about the Sonny Gray one. I don't want to get too far into it there. If he gets that qualifying offer, he's pretty much a no-go for me. But it would be certainly great to have both of those guys. Brian McGrath, Jake, speaking of clubhouse, because it is important, is it possible to arrange a team meeting interview day with him to gauge a potential chemistry? I think that would be a good idea. I don't know that you call in everybody. I know in the past, Alex has spoken with Freddie Freeman on occasions about bringing guys in. I think in this case, you'd probably talk to a Travis d'Arnaud would be one of the guys that you would go to, maybe go to Ozzie as well. I think that would definitely be a good idea and be prudent to, have some of those guys sit in on those conversations and those interviews with Trevor Bauer and get a feel for him and what he's going to be like in the clubhouse, and, maybe lay down the ground rules for the Braves clubhouse that they have and how things will go. And that may, Bauer's a free agent. He can sign wherever he wants. His options may be limited, but if he hears something he doesn't like, then maybe he doesn't want to sign with the Braves. If they are going to limit, say his social media, they want him to limit that and not cause those distractions. He may not want that. David Agnesia is a lifetime Braves fan. I wouldn't want him not willing to win at all cost. I get that point of view. I'm not going to sit here and try to judge the guy. And again, I'm not as up to date on the legal situation and everything, but again, he's available. If he signs, it is what it is. You kind of got to, I don't want to say put your feelings aside. You certainly have the right. I was upset with Ozuna. I've gone on record and said I would have cut him after I saw the video of Ozuna, which some people said wasn't as bad. To me, it was terrible. I would have cut him right then. But here he is with the Braves, and he produced, and he's probably going to win a Silver Slugger this past year. So I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody how they should feel about a certain player and what they may or may not have done. Four Putt, we all know he will not be a Yankee with Cole there. Cole was with Bauer at UCLA. Jeffrey Humphreys, we definitely need pitchers. A short-term 2-year prove-yourself deal would be great. I think that's what it would have to be. Doc's Cards, what if Bauer goes back to the Diamondbacks and torments the Dodgers? I mean, what were the Dodgers' hands were tied in that situation. They gave him the big contract, but there's really not much the Dodgers could do in that situation. I guess they did ultimately cut him for the 2023 season, but it had gone to a point where there was no going back. Leland heard the distractions and negativity Bauer brings is key regardless of his skills. Seems we have great chemistry now and is very low and very risky now. Tough call. Yeah, that's a tough situation here. For putt, I want some of those Brewers pitchers. We have good relationship with them. Yeah, they owe us one for the William Contreras deal. I don't know how they worked that out to get one of the best players in the deal. But yeah, if the Brewers go cutting costs, depending on what happens there with Craig Counsell, they've already lost Brandon Woodruff for the year. Could they trade Corbin Burns? Is he on the market? Maybe Freddie Peralta. Maybe that is an option to go there. Jeffrey Humphreys, great idea. Interview with Travis. Yeah, I think if you were going to even consider signing Trevor Bauer, I think you do have some of your team leaders sit in on that discussion, talk with Trevor Bauer, kind of get an idea of what his goals are, primary goals, which should be winning a championship, nothing for necessarily personal gain in the matter. Brian McGrath, the legal situation is that he was never formally charged, and MLB, realizing this, reinstated him. So again, I'm not up to date on that, but thank you for sharing some of that. I thought I read somewhere where I was Googling him earlier that there was some sort of settlement involved as well. But again, I'm not here to try to tell you how to feel about Bauer one way or another based on the legal situation that he has. Cody Cooper, the opposition already rakes us over the coals for having Ozuna. We don't need another troublemaker like Bauer. I get that, and I think that's certainly a justifiable opinion to have. Kevin saying Bauer's wrongfully accused, woman looking for a payday. Again, I'm not trying to get into that. It's everything I've read about it. It's he said, she said, let the courts handle it. There's probably never going to be any type of truth come out of that. But again, not going to tell you how to feel about the situation, but regardless, it would be a distraction. If you think he's innocent or not, or if he is innocent or not, it's still going to be a distraction. And look, even before the legal situations came in, Trevor Bauer was known as somebody who can be a distraction. So again, even before all of that, that's just kind of the personality that he is. And again, it's great for him. It's great for his brand. I think it's good for a lot of fans that he is that open and sharing and giving an insight into a baseball player's, daily routines and everything that he does. I think some of that is great for fans, but it does come with some distractions. I see D-Dot and others in here saying the Braves need to go after Yamamoto. I don't see that happening personally. So I guess, maybe, but I just don't see that happening. I think if they were going to get a big pitcher this offseason, I think it's going to be to extend Max Fried. I think that's going to be the extent of, big pitcher signings you're going to see from the Braves anytime soon. Hopefully I'm wrong on that. Would love to be wrong. But I think that would be, the extent of the Braves going out and getting a big starting pitcher for the future. All right, we're going to wrap up the Bauer conversation there. Look, if it's up to me, I probably wouldn't sign him, just to be completely honest with you. I mean, would I hate it if they got him on a 1-year, $8 million deal, as somebody suggested earlier? No. I don't know that it's worth everything that comes with it, with Bauer. And look, not to make comparisons between him and Ozuna, again, whether Bauer's innocent or not, he still brings his own baggage and level of distractions. I don't know that personality fits with this clubhouse. So if it were me, I probably wouldn't do it. But if it happens and the Braves do sign him, again, depending on price, I'm not going to hate it. And I think he could come in and has the potential to be a good starter. But I'll, go back to the points earlier. The guy hasn't pitched to the major league level in 2 years, and we're expecting him to come back and be a Cy Young type of pitcher once again. I think that's a lot to ask as well. Yes, he is good. Yes, he is, has a great work ethic when it comes to pitching. He's very smart when it comes to pitching. So again, I feel like at the least he'll be a solid number 3 pitcher. But again, that's still a big if for a guy who hasn't pitched to the major league level since 2021 and is going into his age 33 season. So there is still some risk in there. But again, if you were to get it at a cheap deal, I think it would make sense. But just for me personally, I'm probably not doing it. Like I said, it had to be a pretty dirt cheap deal for me. 1 year, 5 to 8 million. Let him try to prove himself. But I don't think it will happen. As Four-Putt says, I don't think Snit will have it. And again, it all comes down to me. Is the distraction worth it? Is he going to mess up the team chemistry? And, if they do get to that situation and you have an interview with them, I hope they do, as we suggested, and they have a Travis d'Arnaud or somebody like that in the interview. And if those guys give the stamp of approval, then look, I'm on board because I trust those guys. I trust the guys in the clubhouse right now. I trust Mookie Betts too. I feel like he wouldn't say that if he really didn't feel that way about Trevor Bauer. But again, even without the legal issues that came, Bauer can still be a distraction in and of himself. And I just don't know if this team can handle that distractions. Again, look at what happened with Orlando Arcia, the first bit of off-field distraction this Braves team had this year, and they just completely crumbled in that. So I don't know if I want to add more to that, somebody who is going to come in and be a distraction to this team. So that's my take on it. Again, you are all welcome to have your own opinions, and I don't think there's a bad one out there. You want to continue this discussion on the YouTube comments, let it certainly do so. But that's mine. I want to set that up for you because a lot of people have been asking me all offseason, asked me all last offseason as well. So we're going to have a full podcast kind of to break that down. But we got a lot more to talk about on this podcast outside of Trevor Bauer as the Braves continue to make moves, bringing the game back with Joe Jimenez. We'll discuss that signing here next. First, I want to give a shout out to the Texas Rangers winning the 2023 World Series. Congrats to them. Good team. I've thought all year they were kind of the AL equivalent of the Atlanta Braves with that big offense that they had. And their pitching kind of figured it out there in the postseason with Montgomery and Eovaldi and kind of just piecing it together. Not a particularly fun World Series to watch. I'll be honest, the last two games, I kind of found myself putting it on to the side and watching some other things, but is what it is. That game one was really fun. And after that series kind of was terrible to be quite honest with you, but either way, congrats to the Rangers. They got it done. They're your 2023 World Series champions. And now the Braves look to regroup, regather, and get things together for 2024. The offseason is on now. So we are definitely in off-season mode and love off-season in itself. I think the baseball off-season is a really fun one, especially for that first month and a half, kind of up to the winter meetings, maybe a week or two after that. The baseball off-season, in my mind, is really fun. You just never know when that tweet, that post is going to come in and just wreck your day with some big news. So looking forward to that. And the Braves have already done a little bit of that. They signed Pierce Johnson, and now they have also signed Joe Jimenez to a 3-year deal worth $26 million. So I mentioned it after the Pierce Johnson signing. I actually wrote about it over on bravestoday.com. I thought there was a good chance they may do this with Joe Jimenez. The deal in itself, not terrible. You're getting a setup guy for $8 million a year. Not terrible deal. I do worry about just running it back in the bullpen. I think that is a recipe for potential disaster. And the reason just because is bullpen arms are finicky year to year. You never really know going into a season. There have been seasons we've gone into it, and I thought the Braves had, one of the greatest bullpens ever assembled this year. And I thought that was the case. And it was still a really good bullpen, but not quite as dominant as I thought it would be. There have been years we've gone into it and I thought this bullpen is terrible, and it ended up being really, really good. So bullpens are just so finicky season to season, and to just run it back scares me a little bit. And I like these guys. I thought Pierce Johnson was great. I always thought, if it were him or Joe Jimenez, I thought Johnson would be the one to come back. Jimenez took him a little while, but certainly was great down the stretch. I've seen others post this as well, and I think we've talked about it on here, the fact that a lot of times Snitker didn't go to Jimenez in high leverage situations, which is sometimes telling about how much they trust a guy. But then to go out and give him 3 years, $26 million, he has to be a high leverage guy for you. And at this point, they have spent nearly $40 million on 4 guys in their bullpen. You're paying Raisel Iglesias $16 million. AJ Minter is going to get $7 million in arbitration. Now you're giving Jimenez $8 million. You're already giving Pierce Johnson $7 million. So you are locking up a lot of money for your bullpen for setup guys and a closer. Obviously, in Iglesias, that's a lot of money dedicated to the bullpen. And I've seen others ask me about this as well. Why don't the Braves do a better job of building bullpen arms through the minor league levels so you're not spending so much on these guys? And I think that is something the Braves have failed to do in 2 regards, developing relievers, but also knowing when to turn starters into relievers. I look at a Lucas Sims type of case where, he was really good. I know he's been injured with the Reds for a while, but the Reds turned him into a pretty good reliever. I think you got to know when to pull the plug on them as a starter and turn them into a reliever. And that's a hard thing to do when you've invested so much into a person, but relievers are so important these days. That is something the Braves need to do a better job of, because they are having to allocate a lot of resources to the bullpen. Will they do more in the bullpen? You look at it now, it's Iglesias, Minter, Johnson, Jimenez. Those are your 4 guys. You're hoping Matzik comes back and is the guy he was before. Hopefully Dylan Lee's healthy. And I think they're going to bring back Nick Anderson, tender him a contract. So you're already 7 deep in the bullpen with, again, like I said, already a lot of money dedicated to that group. How much more will they really do this offseason? Other news of the day, the Braves had 6 Silver Sluggers announced: Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Ronald Acuna Jr., Sean Murphy, and Marcell Ozuna. No surprise there. One of the best offenses in baseball. You got 6 of 9 guys up for Silver Slugger awards. And then Ben Heller, who was optioned, we talked about it yesterday, elected free agency. So that clears up another 40-man spot. It cleared up a spot when he was optioned, but now he's no longer in the system either. But we'll see more of that over the next couple of days. Like I said, you got 5 days after the World Series, so now 4 days, if you're listening to this on Friday, to make these contract decisions. We're going to know something on Charlie Morton, Eddie Rosario, and see if they drop some of these other guys as well to make room on the 40-man roster. Chris Kaysen, thanks so much for reminding people. Hit that like button. Sorry if I didn't get to your questions out there. Byron McGrath did say, do we keep Uncle Jesse for one more run? I think they do. I think he comes back on a minor league deal. I think we'll see him coming back for next season. But thank you so much for supporting us here at Locked On Braves. Do hit the subscribe button on YouTube, that thumbs up button as well to like the video. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.